there's really one marquee game this weekend, right? And it's Washington at Oregon State. This is a 6:30 kick on ABC. Washington in the thick of the playoff race right now. They're going to Corvallis, where we know weird things happen, especially under the lights. Now, it's going to be under the lights in the second half, I guess. This is an afternoon kick on the Pacific time zone. But Oregon State, guys, opened as a 1-point favorite in this ball game, to the surprise of many. My question to you guys is why?
I mean, it's a great defense playing at home. And, if you haven't been paying attention, Jonathan Smith is running a heck of a program up at Oregon State, and they have for quite some time now. So it makes sense. This is a very, very good Oregon State team. Washington has looked lackluster in certain games. I think they, looked very, very good in the second half against Utah last week. But it makes sense, right? Like, this is a home game for Oregon State. That's a great crowd. It's going to be a fantastic atmosphere. And it's an elite defense at home, at night, in November. That's typically the recipe for being favored.
Well, and let's not discount what Oregon State's doing on offense either, right? This is still a really good Oregon State offense. It's averaging 37.9 a game. That's 14th in the country. So while Washington certainly gets the props on offense, and they should, they're a prolific offense. They're fantastic. I still think you have to look at this and say Oregon State might just be one of the more slept-on teams, mostly because people are sleeping when they're playing a lot of times. It's just people aren't watching their games. But if you've been missing out on what Oregon State's doing, now's your chance to watch and see what this program can do in a big spot against a team currently vying for a playoff spot.
I totally agree. On the heels of the Washington, the Washington Supreme Court, the state Supreme Court ruling in favor of the Pac-2, that Oregon State and Washington State now control the future of that conference, which is just a massive win for those two universities who have been done absolutely wrong. They've gotten the shortest end of the stick imaginable, and both are having success in major college sports right now. And I feel really good for Oregon State that they still are going to get their moment in the spotlight. And guys, listen, we break it down in our X's and O's here, and Trey, I'll turn it over to you, but a good defense at home, that has been my playbook all season long. It's been something that I've ridden to a lot of wins. There is no doubt who has the better defense in this matchup. It's the Beavers.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been higher on the Washington defense than most. I'll admit that. I think shutting out Utah last week in the second half was very, very impressive, but Oregon State has the defensive advantage here. I'm really interested to see how DJU matches up when he has Michael Penix Jr. across the sideline, because we've seen DJU really revitalize his career this year in Corvallis. It's been a fascinating under the radar story. I feel like not a lot of people are talking about it. Hopefully it gets some light shined on it in the national podcasts and on the national shows this week. But it's been a fantastic story. But we have seen in the past when he has, comparable talent, has to go back and forth. Sometimes he cracks under that pressure. So I'm interested to see if he truly is a new man, if he can go toe-to-toe with Michael Penix Jr. If we're ready to get into picks, I'm going to die on the Washington Hill, guys. I don't know. I know that they're the dogs in this one, no pun intended, but I'm going to take Washington. It's a tough environment. It's a tough situation that they're going into. I wouldn't be surprised at all if Oregon State wins this game, but I just think Michael Penix Jr. finds a way. I think he's still playing at a high level, even when the team as a whole isn't functioning as well as it was at the beginning of the year. They're 10-0 for a reason. I think they get to 11-0.
Garrett, on the Jimmys and Joes, Damien Martinez seems like he could be an X factor in this game. Over 1,000 yards rushing, 7 touchdowns. Washington's front seven, like Trey mentioned, they've been, I think, better than what the statistics by themselves show you. And I've been a proponent of the Huskies defense as well. But their front seven is going to be under fire this weekend on the road.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, this is the identity of what Oregon State wants to do, right? They're wanting to run a balanced offense. They want to run Damien Martinez as one of their primary weapons. And that's just what they're going to want to do. So if you're Washington, you have to know that, obviously, but they've stepped up to the task the last several weeks. I mean, there have been teams that have wanted to run the football. Look no further than Utah. They stepped up. They did enough to win that game. Now, obviously, I think that Oregon State's the better offense. I mean, they've been more consistent throughout the year, and I'd also venture to say you're probably looking at a better running back in Damian Martinez than anybody that Utah has in their backfield as well. But the point still remains that if you can do enough on defense, that's going to be where you go. But I also think that watching Washington run the football is going to be a pretty key factor in this one as well. Get some of that blitz pressure off of Michael Penix Jr. You're going to have to look for Dylan Johnson to be big in this one. He's been big in spots, but he also goes quiet, right? He had his 256 against USC, had over 100 last week against Utah, and he scored plenty of touchdowns. He's got 11 touchdowns on the season. But man, he disappears at times too. He's got totals of 12, 66, 6 this year. There have been some really bad totals for him this year. So look, sometimes it's just, the way that they run their offense. Sometimes, you find what's hot and you rock and roll. But I think on the road, I think against a really good defense, you're going to have to find some measure of balance just to keep the defense honest. And that's going to be where I look for my big key matchup here.
Now, Trey's riding with Washington, and it's hard to blame him, right? They've been explosive. Despite some struggles, they've come away with a victory in each of their last 10 games to start this season. The last time they did that, 1991, they shared the AP national title with Miami. I'm going to ride with Oregon State in this one, guys. As I tipped off the beginning, a good defense, the better defense at home has been my playbook this season, and it's resulted in a lot of wins. I did kind of throw it out there before we hit record. Maybe Vegas is goading me into this because they know that the better defense is at home, and they're favoring Oregon State. It feels like it's a little bit too on the nose when I don't think that anybody would just outright say, oh yeah, Oregon State is the better football team. Maybe there are. I don't know that I would go as far as to say that, but I do think in a rivalry game when the pressure is ratcheted way up on Washington, Oregon State has the ingredients to pull off this upset at home behind a very, very aggressive defense.
Yeah, I love the pick. I'm just disappointed you're betraying your boy Odunze, man. You're betraying him. You don't
Yeah,
think
he can still get his and they can lose,
Look, I guess that's probably fair. I think that Washington ends up winning this game. I'm picking them +1. I think this is too good of a football team with way too much motivation this late in the season. And really, when I think about this, obviously, I think Oregon State's the more balanced when it comes to what they bring on offense and defense. But I think Washington's going to find a way just to sling it around a little bit, just to get it, barely over the finish line. I don't think they run away with this one because they haven't shown that they're the runaway with one type of team right now. And that might come back to bite them in this. Like this is very much if they decide to show up flat like they have, against like Arizona State or someone, that's a possible upset spot for them. But I still think with this much motivation this late in the season, they got back on the right track the last couple of weeks. Give me Washington, run the ball a little bit, throw it around the yard, and play just enough defense to win this one.
That's all Trey needs to get all 4 playoff predictions right, seemingly. It's just a little bit of defense. So,
and Michael Penix Heisman, I was in on that too. Just want to shout that out.
That's true. I do wonder if he's going to be able to hang on. He needs 2 more big performances this week and then in the Apple Cup next week because, boy, Jaden Daniels is coming for that trophy right now.
Gracious, how about